You are already losing, not to your enemies, not to circumstances outside your control, not to bad luck or a cruel world, to yourself. And the worst part, the part that should stop you cold right now, is that you do not even know it is happening. It is invisible. It is quiet. It moves through your days like smoke through an empty room, leaving a residue you cannot name but can feel. That feeling of being slightly less than you should be, slightly softer than you intended, slightly farther from the man you see in your mind when you imagine your best self. That gap between who you are and who you are capable of being, that gap is not made of dramatic failures. It is not made of catastrophes. It is made of small things, repeated things, habits that feel harmless in the moment and devastating in accumulation. Right now, today, there are 5 habits living inside your daily routine that are silently destroying your mental strength. Not with explosions, not with obvious warnings, with silence, with comfort, with the patient, invisible erosion that happens when a man stops demanding the truth from himself and starts accepting whatever is easiest. Miyamoto Musashi walked away from civilization at the age of 29. He had already survived 60 duels without a single defeat. He could have stopped. He could have stopped. He could have settled into the comfort of his reputation and called it enough. Instead, he went deeper into the wilderness. He spent years alone, not because he had enemies left to fight, but because he understood that the most dangerous battle a man will ever face is not with another person. It is with the parts of himself that would rather rest than rise. He called this the way of the warrior, not a philosophy you read, a practice you live. Every single day, in every single choice, in the 10,000 small moments where no one is watching and you decide who you actually are. These 5 habits are the opposite of that practice. Each one will feel familiar when you hear it. Each one will feel justified, reasonable, even sensible. That is precisely what makes them dangerous. The enemy you recognize clearly, you can prepare for. The enemy you have learned to rationalize, that one walks right through your defenses and makes a home inside your mind. Stay with me through all 5, because the man who can name these habits has already begun to defeat them. You have made comfort your home, not rest, not recovery, comfort. There is a critical difference between those 3 words, and most men spend their entire lives confusing them. Rest is what the warrior earns after the battle is done. It is earned, deliberate, temporary. It restores the body and the mind for the next engagement. The Stoics honored rest. They saw it as part of the discipline, not separate from it. Recovery is the intentional process of rebuilding. When you have pushed hard, when you have demanded much from your body and your mind, recovery is the intelligent response. It has a purpose. It has an endpoint. Comfort is neither of those things. Comfort is the state of organizing your entire life around avoiding discomfort. It is the alarm you silence because the bed feels better than the cold floor. It is the difficult task you delay until tomorrow, and then the day after. It is the quiet rearrangement of your priorities so that ease becomes the standard instead of the exception. And here is what comfort does to a man over time, slowly, invisibly, without permission. It shrinks his tolerance for difficulty. Every time you choose the easier option when the harder option was available, your threshold for discomfort drops slightly. Your mind makes a record. It registers what you are willing to endure and what you are not, and it adjusts its expectations downward to match your choices. Epictetus understood this. A man born into slavery, a man who had every reason to justify comfort and rest, who had every reason to tell himself that his circumstances exempted him from high expectations. He refused. He said, "Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens." Not as it is easiest, as it happens. He did not ask life to become gentle. He made himself capable of meeting it as it was. Modern men have reversed this entirely. Instead of becoming harder so that life feels manageable, they have softened their environment so that they never have to become harder at all. The temperature is always controlled. The schedule is always flexible. The difficulty is always optional. And the result is a man whose mental strength is a concept he admires in other people, not a quality he experiences in himself. The ancient Spartans had a word for this, Cultivate, the softness of civilization. They considered it one of the most dangerous forces a society could face, not because it was violent, but because it was seductive. It did not attack you. It invited you inside and made you forget why you ever wanted to be strong. You were not built for Cultivate. You were built for resistance, for friction, for the cold and the weight and the challenge that forces every unused muscle in your character to wake up and prove itself. The path back is not complicated. It is simply uncomfortable. Start choosing the harder option in small things. Take the cold shower. Wake up when the alarm sounds. Not 5 minutes later, not 10. Sit with a difficult task without reaching for distraction. Build your tolerance back one small choice at a time until difficulty becomes the environment where you feel most alive. Because a muscle that is never tested does not stay the same. It atrophies, and an atrophied will, in a man who was built for more, that is not a small tragedy. That is the whole tragedy. You are feeding your mind noise instead of silence. Every morning before you have spoken a single word to yourself, before you have remembered who you are, what you stand for, what you are building, you reach for the phone. You open an application. You let 100 voices, 1,000 images, an infinite scroll of other people's priorities flood into the first moments of your conscious day. You do this before your mind has even fully woken up, before your defenses are assembled, before you have had a single original thought. And then you wonder why clarity feels so far away. The Japanese concept of ma, the sacred pause, teaches something that the modern world has entirely forgotten. Silence is not empty. Silence is not the absence of something valuable. Silence is the environment where the most valuable things live. Insight lives in silence. Self-knowledge lives in silence. The clear, honest understanding of who you are and what you need to do next. That lives in silence. And you are killing it every morning before it has a chance to breathe. Think about what your mind is doing in those first moments of the day. It is in a state of extraordinary openness. The neuroscience confirms what the ancient philosophers knew intuitively. The mind in its first waking moments is in a theta state, the same state associated with deep creativity, strong emotional memory, and high receptivity to suggestion. What you place into that state does not just occupy your attention, it shapes your orientation for the entire day. When you fill that state with the chaos of social media, with outrage, with comparison, with the curated lives of people performing their best moments for an audience, you set the emotional and cognitive tone of every thought and decision that follows. You start the day reactive. You start it already behind. You start it with your mind belonging to someone else. Musashi spent years in caves, in forests, beside rivers, not because he lacked options, because he understood that a mind which cannot be alone with itself is a mind that cannot be trusted. The samurai who cannot sit in silence cannot sit in stillness in battle. The man who cannot be alone with his own thoughts cannot think clearly when the pressure is highest, and the pressure will be highest. That is not pessimism. That is the reality of a life lived with ambition and purpose. The moment will come when everything depends on the quality of your thinking, the clarity of your judgment, the steadiness of your inner landscape. And if you have spent every quiet moment flooding that landscape with noise, you will find it barren when you need it most. The discipline is simple. Before you touch any screen in the morning, give yourself 10 minutes of silence. Sit. Breathe. Think one clear thought about what today demands from you. Journal one sentence about who you are choosing to be. Let the first voice in your mind be your own. This is not a productivity hack. It is a protection. It is a guard placed at the gate of your mind before the world rushes in. The samurai placed a guard at the gate of the castle because he understood what was worth protecting: your mind. The place where every great decision and every character-defining choice begins deserves at least the same vigilance. You are seeking approval from people who are not living your life. This is the one that the proudest men refuse to acknowledge, because it does not feel like weakness. It feels like social intelligence. It feels like being aware of how others perceive you. It feels like caring about your relationships and your reputation. It is none of those things. Approval seeking is the systematic surrender of your identity to the judgment of people who do not know your purpose, do not share your values, and are not responsible for the life you will live or the man you will become. Watch yourself for one full day. Count how many decisions you make based on what others might think. Count how many times you edit your words before speaking because of how they might land. Count how many times you hold back an honest opinion, soften a real conviction, or perform a version of yourself that is slightly more palatable, slightly more agreeable, slightly less true. By the end of that day, you will understand how much of your energy that should be going toward becoming who you are capable of being, is going toward managing other people's perceptions of you. Marcus Aurelius was the most powerful man in the known world. He commanded armies, governed continents, held the fate of millions in his hands. He could have designed his entire life around the admiration of others, and it would have been socially justified, applauded even. Instead, he wrote this in private, with no intention of being read. I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others. He was not writing about other people. He was writing about himself. The most powerful man in Rome interrogating his own relationship with approval, that is the standard. That is the level of self-honesty the Stoics demanded. The man who needs approval is not a bad man. He is a man who has not yet decided who he is clearly enough to stop caring what others think. Because here is the truth. When you know exactly who you are, when your values are not abstract concepts but daily practices, when your identity is built on what you do in private rather than how you appear in public, the opinion of the crowd becomes genuinely irrelevant. Not philosophically irrelevant, practically irrelevant. You simply stop checking. The samurai tradition speaks of this as mushin, no mind, the state in which action flows from pure clarity, unfiltered by self-consciousness, unobstructed by the desire to be seen in a particular way. You cannot achieve mushin while performing for an audience. You cannot achieve any form of genuine excellence while organizing your life around the approval of people who are not living your life. Before we continue, I want you to stop for a moment. Drop this affirmation in the comments right now. Write these exact words: I answer to my values, not to the crowd. Type it. Say it out loud if you can, because the act of naming what you believe is the first act of living it. Do it now. I will wait. You are avoiding the hard conversations. There is a situation in your life right now, you already know which one, that requires you to say something true to someone who may not want to hear it. A relationship where something has gone unsaid for too long. A friendship where you've been watching someone walk toward damage and said nothing. A professional situation where the honest thing and the comfortable thing are not the same thing, and you have let it pass again. Because the moment never felt quite right. Because you told yourself it was not your place. Because the peace, even the false peace, the peace built on unspoken things, felt better than the disruption of honesty. The Stoics had a concept for what avoidance does to a man's character. It is not neutral. It is not simply the absence of an action. Avoidance is an action. It is a choice to prioritize your own comfort over the integrity of the relationship, over the well-being of the person you care about, over your own self-respect. Every difficult conversation you refuse to have becomes weight. You carry it in your jaw, in your shoulders, in the tightness behind your sternum at 2 in the morning when sleep will not come. You carry it in the slight diminishment of how you see yourself, because somewhere beneath the justifications you know you chose comfort over courage, and that knowledge does not disappear. It accumulates. Musashi wrote in the Book of Five Rings, "Think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world." This is widely misread as humility. It is not humility. It is the instruction to stop making yourself the center of every interaction, to stop prioritizing your own comfort and reputation above the truth of the situation. The man who avoids the hard conversation is thinking very heavily of himself. He is placing his own ease above every other consideration. The hard conversation, met with discipline and clarity, is not an act of aggression. It is an act of respect. It says, "I think enough of you to tell you the truth. I think enough of this relationship to treat it as something worth being honest inside of. I think enough of myself to stop carrying what I should be saying." Mental strength is not the absence of fear before a difficult moment. Every man feels the tightening in the chest, the pull towards silence, the temptation to let it pass one more time. Mental strength is the decision to walk into that moment anyway, with your spine straight, your words measured, your intention grounded in care rather than conflict. Have the conversation. Choose honesty over comfort. Say the true thing in the calm voice of a man who has nothing to prove and nothing to hide. On the other side of that conversation is something no amount of avoidance can give you: clarity and self-respect, and often the strengthened relationship that only honesty can build. You quit before the transformation arrives. This is the most destructive habit of all, and the reason it is so destructive is that it disguises itself perfectly. It wears the face of logic. It speaks in the language of wisdom. It tells you that you are being strategic, that you are cutting your losses, that a smart man knows when to change course. But there is a moment, a specific moment in every meaningful pursuit where quitting and pivoting look identical from the outside, where the data is ambiguous and the feelings are screaming and the results are not yet visible, and in that moment, the choice you make determines everything. The Japanese call it Gaman. It does not translate neatly into English. It is not simply patience. It is not passive waiting. It is active, disciplined, dignified endurance. The choice to remain inside the fire long enough for the fire to do what fire is supposed to do, to forge you, to burn away what is not essential and leave behind what is. The process of genuine transformation has a structure that almost no one warns you about. It begins with energy and intention. You feel the pull of possibility. You commit. You begin. For a short time you can feel the movement. The progress is visible. The momentum is real. And then, somewhere between weeks 4 and 12 of almost any meaningful discipline, the progress becomes invisible. The scale does not move. The views do not grow. The results that were supposed to be arriving by now have not appeared. The gap between your effort and your evidence becomes almost unbearable. This is the moment. This is the entire test. Seneca wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." The man who quits at this exact moment, at the moment of invisible progress, has made a catastrophic misreading. He has looked at the difficulty and concluded that the difficulty is evidence of the wrong path. But difficulty is not a navigation signal. Difficulty is a forge signal. It means the process is working. It means the transformation is happening beneath the surface, in the roots, in the invisible architecture of who you are becoming, before the visible results appear. Every man who has ever built something meaningful, every warrior, every philosopher, every person who has looked back on their life and recognized genuine transformation, passed through this period, not around it, through it. They did not do it because they had more information than you. They did not do it because the path was clearer. They did it because they made a decision before the difficulty arrived. The decision that their commitment was not conditional on immediate results. Make that decision now, not in the moment of crisis. That is too late. Make it now while you can think clearly. Decide that your commitment to becoming who you are capable of being is not a contract with an expiration date. It is not contingent on the timeline your impatience prefers. It does not require visible progress to remain intact. Do not quit in the dark. The light is closer than you think. And the man who keeps moving in the dark, who keeps the discipline when the results are invisible and the discomfort is loudest, that man, when the light finally comes, is not just successful, he is unbreakable. 5 habits, 5 quiet enemies that have been living inside your daily life, shaping the man you are becoming without your permission. Comfort, noise, approval, avoidance, surrender before the transformation. They are not dramatic. They did not arrive with warnings. They grew in the small decisions of ordinary days, in the snooze button and the scrolling and the opinion held back and the conversation never started and the discipline abandoned 3 weeks before. It would have changed everything, but now you see them. And seeing them clearly is not a small thing. Most men spend their entire lives managed by forces they have never named. They feel the weight, the vague, chronic weight of being less than they could be, but they cannot locate its source. You can now, and that means you can do something about it. The Stoic path is not a path walked once with great dramatic resolve. It is walked every morning, in every small choice, in the 100 daily moments where the easy thing and the right thing are not the same thing. It is the path of the man who has decided to take full, honest, relentless responsibility for the quality of his own mind, and who understands that this responsibility is not a burden. It is the only true freedom available to him. Musashi spent his final years writing the Dokudo, 21 Principles for the Way of Walking Alone. The final principle: respect the divine without relying upon it. Do not wait to be saved. Do not wait to be inspired. Do not wait until you feel ready or certain or fully equipped. Walk. Begin with what you have, where you are today. That is the entire practice. Walk. Begin. Hold the discipline when the evidence is absent and the discomfort is loudest and the easier path is always available. And watch, slowly, powerfully, inevitably, who you become when you refuse to accept anything less than the full truth of what you are capable of. One final thing before you go. Of these 5 habits, comfort, noise, approval, avoidance, or surrendering too soon, which one do you recognize most clearly in yourself right now? Drop it in the comments, not to shame yourself, to name it, because naming it with honesty is the first act of mastery over it. It is the beginning of the whole thing. If this reached something real in you, share it with one man who needs to hear it. A brother, a friend, someone you know who is carrying weight he is not yet named. And if this kind of work calls to you, the quiet, unglamorous daily work of becoming someone the world has not yet seen, stay. Subscribe. There is more ahead. We do this work together, in silence and in strength.